We're gonna call this meeting to order. Tonight is the February 20th regular Board of Selectmen meeting. Roll call. I'm Bob Carlson, the first selectman. Also, we have Selectwoman Nicole Porter and Selectman Brett Mastriani, along with Admin Finance Officer Laura Brown. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so do we have any public comment on non-agenda items? Non-agenda. I don't see anything online. There's no hands up, right? Okay, with minutes. We have two sets of minutes to get approved from February 20th and February 21st.
Okay, I will make a motion to approve the Town of North Stonington Board of Selectmen meeting held on February 20th, 2024 at 6:30 PM, held at the North Stonington Education Center and via Zoom as written.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Two sets of minutes. I think it's a one-page set. It was only it was a joint meeting with the Board of Finance. It isn't in your packet. So it was a joint meeting. I thought it was in our packet, but I don't see it in mine either. Hang on. Okay, why don't we table that to the next meeting? Because I thought it was in our packet. I don't see it. It was one page. It was just the
joint.
meeting
Yeah.
where we pretty much said we were there to listen to presentations and who did the presentations. So we can table it to the next. That's fine.
Was it in our?
The packet?
It should be in the so maybe she didn't copy it. Maybe it's in the online. If it is, then you can just, the minutes are so short, you could read them.
Yeah, I'm gonna look right now.
Also, I have a correction to make. I called the meeting to order and said it was the regular meeting February 20th. I was looking at the minutes when I said that. We know today is actually March 5th, not February 20th. Much closer to daylight savings.
Oh,
You see it?
I'm trying to get to my computer's jamming up.
yep, I got the packet. Hang
You
on.
have it there?
And it's not in the packet. It's probably on the Board of Selectmen
Yeah,
website.
so actually it's not in the packet either.
It isn't.
It
Okay.
goes right from the February 20th minutes, the 2 pages, and then it goes right on to the board and commission.
All right, so
Just
why don't
like
we,
our packet here
so
does.
why don't we just table it till, we'll do it at the next meeting. That's fine.
Okay.
All right. I'll let Jen know about that tomorrow. Are there any selectmen comments this evening? None, okay. And I have none at the first selectmen comments either. I don't see our animal control officer, so what we could do,
She texted to say she's doing the animals and she'll be here as soon as possible.
so why don't we make a motion? So once the motion, we'll move the animal control officer budget presentation to somewhere later in the meeting, and when she shows up, we can work on it then. Okay,
Yeah.
so we'll motion that we move her.
Yep, so I'll make a motion to move number 7 to maybe number 9 and swap the 2 of them and see if she's gonna be here.
Sure,
Second.
okay, just discussion on that. I think we're gonna get by number 9 in the next 5 or 10 minutes.
Oh,
So as long as she shows up during the budget
Okay.
discussion, we can make her a 10A before we
10.
vote,
Sounds
on
good.
the budget. Want to do that?
Yep.
All right, so you amend your motion?
I'm gonna amend the motion to move number 7 to 10A. and move up 8 through 10 up the line.
Perfect. Great. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I think that way, if the budget discussion will be the longest part of tonight's meeting, and that won't be that long either, but we won't vote on the budget until we know, because I know she's doing a presentation about a possible increase. Okay. On
Yeah.
old business, vacancies and appointments. So we have two appointments this evening. EDC was looking to have two alternate members, because that's a minimum representation board, as most our boards are. We have two candidates. One will become the Democrat alternate, and one will become the Republican alternate. But he's unaffiliated, but endorsed by the Republicans. So, so I would like to put the names of Connie Barati and Heath Dugas, unless you want to do them separately, up for appointment. Second. Okay, so I'm motioning to put Connie Barati and Heath Dugas up for appointment as alternate members of the board of the EDC. Brett second. So any other discussion, any discussion? I did not invite them because I think we all know both candidates.
I don't know. Is it Heath?
You don't know Heath? He's
He
on
presented the
Rec?
pickleball. co-op.
pickleball.
Gotcha. Yep, got it.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
Jim Holdridge did the budget presentation, but
Yep.
Heath did the one on the pickleball.
Yep.
So, young guy, yep.
Yep.
All right, so, I think they'll both be good, candidates to be on that, economic development, board. I think that board has got some new life, having Susan Cullen on board now to kind of steer that ship a bit. We have an event coming up that we'll all be at. Actually, everyone in this room should be at it. It'll be in, I think it's April. Is it April 21st?
No.
March 21st,
It's my birthday.
which is when?
On March 21st.
March 21st at
Yes.
Kingdom of the Hawk.
So I'd like have Sam, please have, I would like cake there.
There was also a, not to go outside, there was also, I got an email today that they're doing, Tim Peddle's doing a ribbon cutting. And I did send that information over to Susan Cullen to say that we should probably have some representation for EDC at the ribbon cutting. I think it's 4 o'clock on, did you get the notice? It's 4 o'clock on maybe the 10th. But anyway, so anyway, I'll let you know when that is, but in case you wanted to go, but I know EDC is going to go. I typically shy away from photo ops, so I probably won't be there, but feel free. All right, so back to this. All those in favor of appointing Connie Barati and Heath Dugas to the Economic Development Committee, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so they're going to be, I'll notify both and have them go and get sworn in by, well, Connie's there twice a week anyway, but I'll have Keith going to get sworn in by the town clerk. Capital Committee review. So they have had two meetings. The first meeting was just kind of kick off and decide who the officers are going to be. And Gary Anino is the chair. Lou Gingerello is the secretary, and the vice chair is Sarah Nelson, all three from the Board of Finance, so that's good. We have Christine Wagner and Alex Kapinski from the Board of Education. I'm on the board from Board of Selectmen. I was not able to stay at the last meeting because I had a commitment with the Boy Scouts. Myself and Greg Howard presented to the Boy Scouts on Civics Month. And but Gary did fill me in, and I think they're gonna make some great strides over the next few months. So where I thought we were gonna do a 3 to 4 meetings and then take a break and then come back, seems like Gary wants to push through this thing, so we're get this done sooner instead of later. So, and that's fine. Our next meeting is March 14th at 6:30 in this room, I believe. Any questions about the capital review?
That should be on the town site.
Well, they've been
meetings, right?
posting agendas
Okay.
and they'll do minutes. Yep, they've done a set of minutes already. So you can keep track that way. And you're always invited to come to the meeting if you want to. So we moved number 7, animal control budget presentation, down to the budget discussion, which we're about to go to now. So Kasha, you are able to present if you'd like.
If you want to come sit here and Here it is.
We were talking about, needing a little bit extra funding to get us through to the end of the year. I know you guys had a couple questions on the fundraising, stuff like that was basically,
So I guess, Nicole, I don't know if I mentioned to you, but part of the reason bringing, Tasha in is when I saw the fundraising for, originally was for the facility, but then I read that they were short on funds for their, the vet bills and things like that. Kasha was unaware that those are things that are paid for out of her budget, that she could go for or ask for an additional appropriation to cover that. But they ended up fundraising to cover some of that anyways. So I don't know where we'll lie this year and whether you'll have to come for an additional appropriation for that stuff that you. I have to say, I don't love that we've had a fundraise and then pay those bills. It might be something that we want to look into, paying that nonprofit back for those, because those are things we were supposed to budget. But as I look at this year's budget, I got concerned because there was, let me get to them.
So in 2022-23, the actual was 5546.32. We budgeted 6,000 for the year we're in now. We carried 6,000 to this coming year, but it sounds like you're gonna exceed the 6,000 that you budgeted for this year. So,
because of the cases that I had.
yeah, so can you just fill us in a little bit about us not familiar with all the things that happen with the animal, what we as a town, what we have to do, we're obligated to do? Sure.
So we do have to provide for the animals in our care, so, if they come in emaciated, they have to be examined. Some of them are requiring blood work to figure out what's going on, fecal testing, stuff like that.
And do we have to also do medical procedures? I mean, like, are we spading
We
and,
don't, that's not, a requirement.
okay, it's not, okay. And has there been an uptick in the last year or so with more cases? Is that's why we're blowing this budget?
We have a lot of cases this past
And what do you think that is? Is there anything you can attribute to that or?
We had a lot of owner surrenders in town. People couldn't afford their pets any longer. That's the biggest thing is financially.
Okay, and it's maybe not pandemic driven, but did people adopt a lot during the pandemic and now they're finding they can no longer?
Possibly too. A lot of behavioral issues in the home with the pandemic puppies that they got and weren't socialized, and they're finding that they're becoming aggressive with their family members and they're signing them over and.
And after what you do, that's mandated by the state or that we have to do, then those animals put up for adoptions? Yeah, if they're safe enough. And then what if they're not?
Very rarely would we have to put an animal to sleep, but if it's too aggressive to put back out into the public safely into a home with other people, then they do end up being euthanized, but we have not had to do that.
And who does the work for us? Is there any particular group that does, do you do it yourself or does it have to go to somewhere out like a veterinarian's clinic or?
They give us a 15% discount on services. And then we have, I have a trainer that lives here in town as far as doing behavioral assessments on the animals. She's doing that on her own with at no cost. She does
Okay.
that for us.
And basically, what do some of these procedures cost?
So blood work ranges from 100 to 300, depending on how in depth they need to go. Fecal testing is I think $40. We do rabies vaccinate before we send them out of the shelter as well, and that's $36.
And it's 4 paws, that's what you said we go through, right? Is that, have we ever looked at pricing, or do you just know, being that you're kind of in the business, right? Is that where we're getting our best? Not that you're always looking for a deal when it comes to the health and well-being of anybody or anything, but is that, you feel we're treated pretty fairly by?
I mean, if you wanted to look around and see if there are better options, that's fine by me. It's just, they are usually very accommodating. If I have something, I can usually get it right in versus having to make an appointment and wait a week or so, but, if you would like.
I think personally, I would rely on your knowledge and expertise, not mine. You saw how I was when you brought that dog in the other day, right? So I was the one who didn't hold and cuddle the dog. So anyway, not that I have anything against dogs, but I don't know where to go. I've not had a lot of pets, so I would defer to you on that.
Trust them because I've been, with them for 18 years, but, I mean, it's not, something that we have to use just that one place.
No,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
no, is it worth, so I noticed some towns, like I'm looking at Newtown right now. They charge an adoption fee.
Mhm.
So like I know you had a litter of puppies
Mhm.
recently, so. What's that?
How'd you get the news out?
Because
you
I look
find
up
that?
small towns and it came up. So they have any dog that's spayed or neutered by the town of Newtown will be charged $150 for an adoption fee. Because state rules, if it's already neuters, it's like $5, $5 you can charge. They also have now, so I don't know if this would work because they have a surrender fee saying, look, if I can't afford my animal and I'm gonna surrender it to you, they have to pay the town $100. I don't know if that will make people just dump them on the side of the street more.
Yeah.
And that's what you worry about with that, but is it worth looking into?
A larger
A
adoption
lot
fee?
for like the dogs that you just had. How many puppies did you just have?
10.
10. And do you spay or neuter them before they leave or?
No, they're too young, so usually 6 months they get spayed or neutered, and they leave the shelter at 8 weeks as puppies, so. With
Okay.
the mom, I was able to find an adopter who was willing to pay for her spay, so she's taking care of that.
Oh, okay, so the people that adopted those new puppies, they'll take care of
They
that
get the
neutering.
voucher, yeah. for
Okay.
the State of Connecticut.
All right, so we don't pay for those.
Nope.
But the ones that you take in that you have to neuter,
Yeah,
that might be a different
Yeah.
story.
yeah.
Any idea of where you will fall for the end of this year over that?
I
Because you
mean,
were told around November you were almost out of,
that's when she said
your
yes,
budget?
Yes.
And who told you that? God bless you. Or she did.
and how much did you guys pay out of the,
3,600
so you paid an additional?
Already, you paid 3,600.
No, out of the,
for the fundraiser.
I mean, on the fund money,
Right, out of the
on top of the $6,000 that you were budgeted. Wow. So that's a big increase. Have you seen this? I mean, you've been the animal control officer for a while. Have you seen this in the past where it's been such a large jump?
It does seem each year it has gotten, gone up and up. I've talked to other local animal controls, Ledger, and Groton, and they said that they've seen the same exact issues.
Okay. I mean, we get off pretty cheap when it comes to animals in our town because we don't pay a lot of money for a shelter. We don't have to support a shelter. We have the deal worked out with Sorenton, and you're good enough to help us with that by commuting. So the town has recognized quite a bit of savings over the last few years. I think if this was the year to put some money in this and then keep it at that, I mean, is going from 6 to 10, does that make sense? Or is that even too small? Or
I don't think it's too small. It's hard to predict with animals, unfortunately. I mean, I could leave here and get a call for a dog that was hit by a car that needed major medical and nobody claimed the dog, and then we get hit with a big bill, but I mean, we just can't predict what's gonna happen, what we'll get in with
Yeah.
medical stuff, but
Nicole, what do you think?
as far as, the spays and neuters, I could probably keep it that lower, at least get us till June.
and we can look into the fees on that, at least
Yeah.
to recoup some of it.
Yeah.
I worry how my comment's gonna come out and how it's gonna sound. so I'll just I'll just say it. So you mentioned a dog, where, right, dog is hit en route to, you get a phone call, nobody's coming to claim it. Who makes the decision on major surgery versus putting the dog down? Who, how is that regulated? How is that decided?
That would probably be something I would call, if that came, you know, it's thousands of dollar surgery we're facing, I would definitely give you guys a call, to get, you know, but usually the veterinarian is gonna be forthcoming with saying this animal is worth, you know, is savable, you know? If there's one that's not, they're not gonna just keep making us put money into it and knowing that it's at the end, it's gonna be.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I had one just about a week and a half ago. It was a cat that was hit by a car. Broken pelvis, spine, and right leg. And internal bleeding. They're like, this is not one you want to put money into, and we did humanely euthanize that animal.
So you're proposing a 10,000?
I think I can explain to the Board of Finance that because we save so much money on the shelter at this point, that we can probably afford to put money into this line. I think we're also mandated a lot, Nicole, on what we have to do if we have an animal control.
Well, that's why I wanted to kind of understand that the decision-making around that, and, it sounds like there are kind of rules and requirements that we have to go by in your role.
Yes.
There's a rule that most towns have I know, who's the group that wanted to do the big shelter for us up on Winterchuck Hill? It was,
Stand up for animals.
Save Animals, and I know they have a no euthanizing policy, right? It's like last resort. Do we or do small towns have a policy, or do you just go case by case?
It's just case by case.
Okay. It's typically, it would always be health driven, not because we just can't find a,
Health and temperament.
okay. So it's not like, okay, well, this cat or dog's been here for a long time, we can't find it. Okay, so it's just strictly whether the dog or animal's salvageable medical purposes. Okay.
I do, you know, the fees, I do worry, Brett, if we put too many barriers in between, somebody safely relinquishing their pet versus side of the road kind of a thing. I do worry a little bit. I'm not, yeah. I think, I'm wondering what are our thoughts on somebody comes to adopt and we have a suggested donation to the animal shelter. Here, we've given this dog, you know, the rabies shot, and this is, we already know that it's already neutered. We do accept donations, rather than charging a fee, and that then those that are able to or willing contribute to the fund, and others, we won't put that barrier in between
No, I
them
think I
safely.
think it's a great idea because so many times when you go to buy a pet, or you buy a dog and how expensive it could be.
Absolutely.
This way, if you're getting an animal that has all the medical that's done, it's up to date. And you do just that, we do accept donations, you might get something bigger than you expect, I think.
Absolutely.
And I think you wouldn't want someone to say I can't afford it, so I'm not going to, and now you lost a chance for a good home. Also, it'd be nice to have a family that maybe can't afford to go out and buy a pedigree, whatever, golden doodle. They can get a nice pet, someone that the kids can get close to, and it helps you and it helps them. So,
And I think that's, the state does something similar, because I know when I got a horse from the state, they don't charge you for that, but they said, hey, if you'd like, write a check to donate to the state for that.
Yeah.
Now, are we doing what similar to what Stonington does when it comes to vaccinations and all that stuff, or?
They do a lot less than we do.
Okay. And they don't accept cats, is that correct?
No, very few, sick or injured usually, but they don't usually take in cat owner surrenders.
Okay, and then with us, if you had a dog bite or something where you had to, um, board the animal for, do we charge?
I
Per
don't
day?
because they don't charge.
Oh,
they
it's
have been
Stonington, okay.
charging us. But if we had our own place, then that is an option for us to. do.
Okay,
I think it's, we're allowed to charge up to $15 a day for that.
So you think if we put in a budget number of 10,000, knowing that you can go, it probably will go for an appropriation between now and the end of the year that we can get from the Board of Finance to just make up for this year, including, as Brett said, possibly pay back the nonprofit that you have started donations that you've already received, so the nonprofit gets that money back again. I think that would be an easy case to sell. We're not talking a ton of money either, so I mean, when you're talking, it's not gonna be over 20,000, right? We're good out, so I don't have to go to a town meeting. We just do it at Board of Finance. Perfect. So I think that, why don't we do that? We're working on appropriation for this year, but raise the budget to 10,000 for this budget we're working on now. And we're gonna vote on a budget this evening, Kasha, and send it to the Board of Finance tomorrow evening. So, we can, as long as you agree to that.
Yeah, so, the fundraising that you did, what was the fundraising and how much did you raise?
Was started a 501c3 for, it's called Friends of North Stonington Animal Control. For us to, it was a Facebook GoFundMe.
Okay, so it was, okay. And how much did that
Just
yield?
under 4,000.
And you wanna repay
I think we
that
should
four
look-
thousand
because-
in addition to?
I think we should look into it because those are things that we as a town are supposed to be paying for. That nonprofit that was started that, was suggested by the last, I think, first selectman, is because in our POCD from 2013, it says we needed to build an animal control, building.
That's
right.
that's our goal.
And the town didn't want to fund that.
for-
So this nonprofit was started to raise funds for that purpose, not to.
Oh, I
really-
thought this was specifically to make up the loss that you're
That
already in right
GoFundMe
now.
was,
That one was.
because, Tasha was unaware, was never told that she could ask for additional appropriation. to
Gotcha.
cover.
Okay,
the
so,
concern.
so are there two, there's the nonprofit that Emily Lewis started, and then there's something else to have raised money to make the shortfall up?
No, it was a GoFundMe for that.
For that fund, for that.
Okay.
501c3.
And how much have you used out of that 4,000 that you have in that account?
It paid off the 3,600 that we owed the vet.
So if we didn't have that, we would have to do an appropriation for that money anyway. If there was no such thing as a GoFundMe and a 501c3. So I could understand that money was, the long range goal on that is to actually get money eventually to have our own shelter in town. That's the goal.
Yeah. Okay. But then we have responsibility and ownership of that and have to continue to fund it in the future, right? So let's say that eventually there's $15,000 in there and that allows us to purchase something or start something, then it's going to be on the town to maintain.
To
moving
maintain it.
forward.
Right. So similar to the big animal shelter that other group wanted to build for us up on Winterchalk. The idea was that was a 99-year lease for I think it was like 30 by 60 building that was free. It was also going to be about as big as the Farm Chew building on Route 2. And it was going to be a regional shelter. And we could take animals from other towns besides North Stonington, but North Stonington would have to, now when you build new shelters nowadays, you just don't build concrete walls. You have to have air conditioning, you have to have heat, you have to have food, you have to man the shelter. So that would all fall back on North Stonington. We found that it was probably gonna be somewhere between $35,000 and $40,000 to maintain that in a yearly, not counting animal control salary, just to maintain that building for food, shelter, and so on. If you're bringing in 30, 40 animals from regional, and we had them all, we thought that even though it sounded like a great deal, we're gonna get a shelter for free, but there was you know, within 4, 5, 6 years now, we've been paying 35 to 40,000 a year. Did we really save any money? And when the deal came through with Stonington, which we pay $1,200 a year, I believe, and the only negative is that Kosh has to go back and forth to feed the animals, but that's a far cry from $35,000.
And they could pull that though at any time.
They
And
could.
it's not ideal for our.
Well, it's not ideal, and I would love to have us have our own shelter. And yes, I guess the answer is if we do build a shelter someday, we will have to maintain it. Unless that 501c3 is still active and can put money towards the operating costs, I guess, would you say? I mean, you're not gonna, just because it's shelter, you wouldn't close the 501c3. So, but that's got a long way to
But
go.
the shelters along
Right, that's a lot.
appears, especially if we've kind of drained the account now to pay for expenses, it's a long way. I just think that I just would need to kind of process that a little bit more, what that would mean for the town.
But as far as that, so we're talking about two different things. As far as at the end of the year, at the end of the fiscal year, getting the appropriation to pay that line back is one question, which we don't have to deal with tonight.
Yeah.
But as far as the budget tonight, would you be okay with raising from 6,000 to
Yes.
10,000?
Yes,
And the appropriation, that might be something we want to do near the end of the year.
Mm.
Cause then you'll have a total of how much we've been using now. Is there, if this is in here, like in the budget, is there a way that you can visit Bob like every few weeks and let him know what's going on with like our bills when it comes to that? What kind of animals are being treated and anything major? That way you can have we have a handle on what's happening.
Gosh, you can visit anytime. Just don't bring in a cat because I'm allergic. But you bring any dogs that you want, it's fine. Was that dog you brought in the other day, was that considered a puppy? Yikes, it was a gorgeous dog, but it was like this big.
Adopted.
Oh.
He was big.
And-
It's like
Yes.
Bob's fishing tours.
so without the 3,600 you had to take out, where are you anticipating if you were to continue the way you're going? And I fully understand how difficult it is to tell what's going to happen with animals, but how far over your is it 6,000
Yeah.
that how far over? You're already 3,600 over. Like, where do you think you're going to land at the end of the fiscal year?
It's very difficult. I don't see, so we're already in March. June, I got 3 months to get through. After these puppies leave, I will only have 2 animals in our care at that point, so it should slow down, but usually in the spring, summer months, things pick up a little bit busier, so I don't think we will go too much more than, if I had to guess, if we don't do any like elective surgeries like spays and neuters and just, try to be, watch the money outgoing as far as just for major medical and stuff like that. I think maybe 1,000 or 2 more should
Okay.
get us
Okay.
through the next 3,
Nope.
1,000.
Katja, when you have to confiscate animals, from like you've dealt with a few hoarders in town where you had to take out
That's the other thing.
a lot of animals. What happens? Does the state help with that? Because I know you've gone to other towns to help the state with that.
Financially, no,
Okay.
it falls on us. Manpower, yes, they will come and help if we need it.
But caring for them, nothing on the state
Mm,
level.
No, about 2 years ago, we did that with, was it Hebron? That,
Yes, Hebron.
are we finally
does
done with that?
too, yeah.
That was, but she comes and asks permission of the town if she can volunteer her services. And we've done that sometimes in Stonington too, where we've shared back and
Mutually,
forth.
yes.
Kasha, are there any type of programs that exist in other towns that we enlist the help of? I know my brother and his wife have fostered a lot until an adoption comes through. And these are animals and dogs that are being shipped up to the east from down south and, New Orleans and all that. Have we ever thought about having North Stonington families become involved with fostering of these animals instead of having them sit in the Stonington shelter?
It's a possibility, however, I find it a liability as well, because you just don't know what if one of those family members gets bit?
Yeah,
They can come back on the town.
it would have them sign a waiver. All right, I'm just, I'm just thinking, because I know that like there are definitely families out there that can't commit to the full ownership, but would foster. I don't know what my brother and his wife sign or how they are involved in this program.
I know a lot of local rescues, they still will, they're still in charge of the medical, stuff for
Yeah.
those animals when they go out into foster homes. As far as feed goes, I think that the foster family probably is responsible for buying the food.
Food
for
and
them,
things
but
like that, yeah,
As far as medical stuff, the town would still.
Hmm.
okay.
And
Just-
in that 6,000 that we have budgeted now, that is food and everything included in that?
It should
For the
be,
film?
however, I do get quite a few donations
Okay,
of food, so that's helps us a lot.
all right, perfect.
Okay, if there's no other questions, we can move on with the budget and we can, when we get to that line and we'll vote to put at the total at the amount we just said, okay?
Thanks, Kasha.
Okay, so we can start with number 10, budget discussion. So this is our last discussion before we vote on the budget this evening, and then I'll bring it to the Board of Finance tomorrow, see what they think of our budget. We'll start with some good news. I got a letter from Darrell that if you look at line A 3.13 on the revenue line, it's called telecom revenue share state in lieu of. So we put in $10,000. We got correspondence saying that that number is actually going to be 15,432.31. So we can add $5,432.31 to the revenue line, which when we do that, and Laura can give us that total later, is going to bring us pretty close to 910,000 total revenue from this year and last year, increase from this year to last year. So again, it's 5,432.31, and it'll raise overall revenue to 910,000 approximately.
You're adding it to one line item?
So I'm adding it to that,
3.13,
3.1.
A 3.13.
yeah, A is an apple, 3.13, 5,432.31.
So it's only an increase of the 5,432.
Right, 'cause we already had 10,000
We already had the
budgeted.
10 in there.
Yeah, we just did it flat with last year, not knowing what it would be, but now we know what it'll be, so it's good for us. So did that move the needle on the bottom line, Laura?
So you want to add 5,432?
$5,432.31. Just to see if your computer's working.
Yeah.
Bob, can I ask a question while she's
Sure.
figuring that? A 3.12, Mashantucket Pequot and the Mohegan Fund,
Yes,
so that's flat. Do we ever, how is that negotiated?
determining by the, it's determined by the House and the Senate, so it's
Oh.
determined legislators. And last year, that actually was voted by both the House and the Senate to double it, and it was vetoed by the governor. So he overrode both the House and the Senate. It wouldn't have been doubled.
So did they go back and say, okay, we don't want to double it, but let's add a little something
No,
to
just,
town?
no, who knows what goes on behind the scenes,
Yeah.
but it got vetoed out of the budget, and then maybe the budget got passed. But yeah, so that will be up for discussion again this year. I don't see it moving because it got vetoed last year.
Do we
but-
know how many years it's been flat?
You'd have to go back, but it's always been somewhat in that area. There is there's a scary bill out there that would actually help Legend and Montville, but hurt us, would be if there's a, no, it's not a bill, but it's a discussion that if they take away Legend and Montville's ability to do third-party tax on things like their slot machines and, the different stores like that are in their mall, and Great Wolf Lodge, that if they were able to take away that third-party tax that Legend draws on, in lieu of that, they would give them a bigger piece of the Mashantucket Pequot Fund. And then, but then they would take all the other towns to get money from that fund, and we would divide up what's left. So they would get like almost like double what they get now, but we divide, so that would mean that ours would go down if that happened. But that's just a discussion at this point. Any other questions on revenue? Did it work, Laura? Did it
Your
go?
total in that section would be 4.2.
What's the total?
4,230,000.
No, not that one. I'm looking at, so it should have, the revenue should have went from 904,005, 20, it would have went from 23,424,128.20 with an increase of 904,000 up to an increase of 910,000 roughly.
Where's the 900,000 coming from? Oh, sorry. Yep, okay.
So is that, so that would go with an additional 5,000.
Okay.
Up to 900.
Okay.
So we'll take it out.
So you put that in, which,
You want the change?
and I'll bring that up. So see, it went to 910.
Yep.
Yep, so that's the new number.
Okay.
So our new revenue total is, was it 910,000 and what?
And $2.20.
So 910, comma, 002 dot 20 cents.
Yep.
Okay,
If you're,
okay, great.
if you're going to the dollar,
Yeah, it's
if you want.
a funny thing. We always used to round up, and then one of the Board of Finance members said, why do you always round? Nothing is a round number. So I've done it in cents this year. All right, so that's that. So that's the increase in the revenue. That's the good news. As we go through the budget, I'm gonna ask you also, are there any proposed changes? We'll go just page by page, not line by line. Is there any proposed changes on the first page, which starts out with B1 and ends with B 10.05? I have none. Just want to see either of you have any
Where are we?
changes. It's page 3 of the budget.
Okay.
Starts with B1, Board of Selectmen, and ends with B 10.05, ordinances under Town Clerk. It's page 3. Is there any changes by either Board of Selectmen member at that point? We know we have made some changes in the past on the previous meetings, but is there any changes this evening that we haven't made before?
Not for me.
And I have none either. On page 2, starts with economic development, B15, goes all the way down to B2505. Again, we made some changes here. You know, we changed on the economic development. We made changes on 15.02. And what I'm gonna do tomorrow is highlight all the changes we made, so it'll be easy for the Board of Finance to understand in each category what we did to make changes. I'll do that tomorrow I figured after tonight's meeting, we make the changes we're gonna make this evening, I'll make one sheet for them for tomorrow night, so it'll be easy for them to understand. But I have no changes to make on this page. Do either of you have any changes to make on this page? And again, this is probably our 4th rendition of going through the budget, so.
Page 4, you said?
Page 4, B15 through B2505.
I have some discussion points, maybe some changes. So under B16.
Recreation Commission,
Recreation
yes.
Commission. What I personally would like to see going forward on some of our reporting is by programs. And I'd like to see the programs that we actually run broken down separately in the budget compared to the pass-throughs. Because there's no way for us to monitor the ones that we actually run to see what revenue is coming in without asking for additional reports all the time. But if during the budget process, we can see those, then we know what we're looking at, because we always say that rec pretty much pays for itself. We lose money on the.
We've
director
always
and
heard
stuff.
that,
Right.
yes.
We've always We've always
Right, now
heard.
you made a suggestion, I thought was a good one, a few months back, probably more than maybe a year ago, that when we have these, as you say, pass-through we'll say drama is one, right, or golf.
Yeah.
And they're using the facility, I guess more like an indoor facility, drama, yoga. Do they pay any kind of a fee? Because we know that they, like, because they're in there, we have to warm up the building. They have to, we have to clean the building. We have lights on. Is there any fees that we were able to collect? Do you know? I
So
thought that was
they charge a fee if you use the building itself. What I tried to get them to look into was charging a flat fee for all those programs, because we have to 1099 all those people that hold those programs, and they're actually making money off running a program. So it's like being able to run a business without any overhead expense other than your own self. So they've talked about it and they keep saying, we're gonna work on it, but it's probably been a year now.
so we started collecting any money? We haven't?
We've only collected when they hold, I think it's maybe a 3%, don't quote me on that they charge if the person actually uses that rec building itself.
So there's
But
no
not like for
flat
tennis or any of
administration
that
fee?
stuff. There's nothing like.
So,
that.
and I agree, they probably should be, even if it's something small, like, 2%, 3%.
Right,
whatever
and that's
the
what I
number is.
said, 3%, just to cover our processing fee of Susan going through and 1099 all the people that run those programs. And the cost of my rec is $3,100, and that benefits all those people running those programs. Now, I was watching the Board of Ed meeting, and they're talking about running a summer or an after-school program. And they looked at some software that is like my rec, but they said it's a lot more user-friendly. And it was probably almost half that price. So that might be something we look at going forward too. But I really would like to see those breakdowns of those revenues and costs. Because when you do look at it, and I don't know if Tom got back to us, but when I broke down the soccer and it showed that it was making like $3,000 or so, or even more, they said that wasn't accurate. So I don't know if he ever got you new numbers on that, but I want to make sure we're not overcharging certain groups and undercharging others,
So,
and not predicting high revenues.
so I think that that's a discussion, the Board of Selectmen, since they're an advisory to the Board of Selectmen, that we can work with them this year on coming up with establishing revenue in that form. I don't see do you see there's any issue with charging some sort of administrative fee to, say, somebody wants to come and teach tennis?
Yeah, no, I don't have a problem. I think there needs to be kind of a sweet spot between not losing people that can offer a program because they don't, because it's not going to be profitable for them, right? But I agree that there needs to be that happy medium between us kind of covering some of the overhead.
Well, I don't think
And
you're
then-
talking big fees though, right? You were talking
No, like-
$25?
Yeah, 3%, 2%. So there's some checks that we write
I have no.
for
pro- yeah.
$8,000
Yeah.
to people a few times a year that then we 1099. It's a small price to pay to run a program and get that
Yeah.
revenue.
No, I'm not opposed to that at all.
I mean, it's never gonna be a big revenue stream, but at least we know we're getting something to help with administration costs.
Yep.
Yeah.
I also am in favor of every maybe couple of months or twice a year, inviting them to Board of Selectmen to kind of just give a status report and see if we all can't brainstorm to find ways to make these. I'm not looking to make a profit because I get it. I've been that parent that is sending my kids to that summer camp, but at least not lose money on a regular basis year after year.
Right, because we're consistent with those other programs and those break even. But for some reason, there's a few that don't break even.
Yeah,
That cost. So, and that was one of my suggestions, is cutting some of this stuff out of, and I brought it up during the presentation, out of the summer camp budget of the presenters or the bouncy house, because those are extras. So in other towns, you pay extra to go to those things, but it's a 3-hour program that won't detract from people signing up because they don't have an extra fun day on a Friday. And then the snacks and waters, and it sounds, it sounds like not great when you say, hey, let's cut snacks and waters, but they're only there for 3 hours a day. And it's only for up to 40 kids at a time. And in 2022, that program lost $3,200. Last year, from the numbers I have, it lost $8,000 for 40 kids. If that was in any other one of our budget line items, we would lose it.
But all in all, though, and I know that that's your issue, there are some that are making a profit and help covering, or,
So
although
they're-
there was a question.
And they
that
said,
it was
so what
an
I
error.
heard from another member was really, they only made 300 on the basketball, not
Not
the
3,000.
3,000 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So I looked at the numbers, and in the year 21, 22, outside the revenue, it cost the town 45,480. Now, in there is the salary of the coordinator, which makes sense, the expenses of fields and electricity, but in 2022, 23, we jumped up from 45,000 to 55,884 that it cost us to run the rec programs. And if you look at those same timeframe, that's where some of this summer camp stuff went a little crazy. Now, it's a valid program, and I know the Board of Ed, when they talked about their after-school program, that the groups they're looking into might have a summer program eventually down the road. So maybe that helps alleviate some of these.
And I know our
Issues.
tenant is trying to expand her. before the
Right,
end
so
of the day.
maybe that helps, but in the meantime, I think we should do whatever we can to at least help it break even. And that's why I'm propose lowering it by 2,900 from their summer camp.
What line item are you
So
looking at?
that's under 1601, but that's on their breakdown that they gave us here. So they gave us a breakdown.
So we're already on B1601, we're already cutting that from where they were approved 23, 24. We're taking out almost $2,000. You're suggesting that we cut it even more?
Well, that was not our cut, though.
That
That
was their
was, that
cut.
was their number to us.
Because
Oh.
they cut one of their staff members for the summer camp, but it still is at a loss. And that's saying their projected revenue is accurate, but in that projected revenue is none of the discounts for the second child, which is $20 off a month, which is quite a few.
Okay, so
kids.
you've got 70,400. You want to cut what, $2,900 out of that? Is what you said?
29 out of, yeah, the breakdown. And that's where I think we need to do it and let them know where we're cutting it, so they don't cut it out of a
I
program.
mean, if they come to us later on and they have a good explanation, we've been known to put things back in if it makes sense. But for tonight's purposes to get so what I'd hope to do is go through this budget, see if anyone in the audience or anybody online wants to have any comments before we vote to approve. So I have something to go to the Board of Finance tomorrow. We also know that budgets aren't always, they're not non-changeable. We did that a couple of years in a row. We've made changes. So I'm not opposed to you making that cut, Brett, at this point. And then if the rec commission can come and present to the Board of Finance, Board of Selectmen and say, this is why we think that was a mistake and this is why, we can put it back in if we had to.
Right, and the basketball program loses 1,700 a year. So soccer's the only one that covers itself, that out of the program, their major programs that we actually run.
I
So-
also, unlike in the past, on the previous budget meetings we've had, we've just all agreed. This meeting, I want to vote on each change. So we know that the changes,
So I just want to clarify, you want to take another 2,900 out of B1601.
Correct.
so that would be more like a $4,800 cut roughly overall. Is that what you're saying, Nicole?
With, oh, you want me to do
Yeah.
the math?
No, I
With
was gonna
the,
put it in
with
a
the
minute.
intent to do what again? To work with them on cutting some of the summer
No,
camp.
so I'm looking at their breakdown, and that's the two that I'm looking to cut, and it's $2,900. So and that's part of the problem with not having a breakdown of program.
So, I mean, we can cut it by 2,900. In the end, they're gonna have to come up with where they're gonna skimp. If they decide to get the bouncy house, then they're gonna have to find the money elsewhere. Now, I just always remember in past years, they have come to us for appropriation, and it's always been explained to us, that it's just to get the money out there to pay for the program, and then it pays for itself. We're kind of uncovering that it's not always paying.
Well,
for
last year
itself.
was also, because they had to bring on some additional summer help, I believe. So it was also an increase. There was an assistant director or something.
Well, that's why it went up a little last year, but talking and asking for appropriation that we went to the Board of Ed for, at the Board of Finance for at the end.
So for tonight, I'm fine cutting 29.
But I also
Okay.
think so different than some other commissions, we can also kind of direct where they cut that because they are an appointed commission. And there's a breakdown of those.
Do we really
fees.
want to get in, the middle of, we want you to cut the bouncy house?
Well,
or-
those two lines is what I'm looking to cut out of their subcategories.
Well, but you really just want to cut 2,900 and let them figure it out?
Not really, because
Okay.
I don't think that program should be losing the kind of money that it is based on 40 children at the max. It doesn't benefit. So
Yeah.
to me, I would totally fund that in my mind. If they said these Fridays or whenever those programs are, you want to register your kid to come play and you're not part of the summer camp, you can do that. But we're basically, if you look at last year's numbers, we're subsidizing $200 per kid that goes to those summer camps.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I just don't know if we as the Board of Selectmen want to get in the middle of that fine detail of telling them what they're gonna cut from their summer program. If we're gonna give them a lump sum of obviously less than 70,000 now for their programs, they're gonna need to figure out, just like we would all have to go back to the drawing board and figure out how we're gonna make that budget. And maybe it means becoming creative and cutting from here or cutting from there, or charging a little extra to
So
make
they've
up.
they already set the fees for this year. And it is, this
Well,
isn't,
if they've already set the fees that are gonna be affected in this 25 budget, how can they set the fees already when they don't even know what the pot of money that they're
because
gonna
they
have?
have, because they roll out summer camp ahead of time.
Yeah.
Now, it does get dicey. And this is why we need to look at some of this, because one of the director of the summer camp is also a sitting member of the committee.
And so let's not get into the weeds too much
Right,
with
so
this. So
I'm just saying it gets dicey
Yeah.
when we look at it all, and if you move stuff around too much, because I'd hate for them to say, well, we're gonna cut some other program to make up for that.
So Nicole, I agree with you to a point where I don't know if we need to micromanage all our advisory boards and what we could do is I can make a list of all the advisory boards, like I think Brett suggested last year. And periodically have them, not during budget season, coming in and talk. And you might say, we need rec twice, we need you farm once, we need conservation once, we need affordable housing, whatever it happens to be. And have them come in and explain, we can have questions ready for them at that time. As far as micromanaging, that's like saying to the Board of Finance, what they say, well, you need to cut this line on our budget. We say, no, we'll cut our budget. You tell us what the number is, right? And we
Yeah.
don't want the Board of Finance cutting our
But I
budget.
think when you go back, you're heavily involved, you attend the meetings, you know their book of business. Having those conversations at the rec commission is where I think that they need
Right.
to happen. Maybe they need help kind of having the bigger picture and seeing where they could possibly do things a little bit more efficient. I don't want to, you tell my kid they're not gonna have a bouncy house on Friday. Like, it's
So
gonna be
I
upset.
support you in
But-
making the cut, but I think we should talk about how much we're gonna micromanage down the line. So
I would leave that to you and working with the rec commission. I say I'm in favor now of cutting the 2,900, and how that is done is really up to the commission.
And I would like to know about, so if there is a potential loss coming, it'd be nice to get that report. So maybe meeting with them more regularly, we would know that some program isn't working like they expected, or some program's working much better than they expected. So I know they're looking at other things to reduce cost of like basketball or soccer, where they can have businesses sponsor the t-shirts, things like that, which other towns. do.
I think
So
also those administrative fees and how's that working? And
Right.
Yeah.
are we tracking that? So, all right, so that's all.
Can I just ask a clarifying question? One more. In the end, their budget for the year before, did they go over budget? They were given their actual spend in 22-23 was 134,999.
Mhm.
I don't have, do we have?
We don't
actual-
have
Yeah,
the
so
break-
yeah, it's right there. It's the bottom line, just under 1605. The bottom of the column, 134,
So that was their actual for 22-23,
was,
but I don't
it
know what
was.
they were budgeted for. So their actual, their approved 23-24, and that was quite a jump, 152,
So Brad's right here.
Oh, no, I
929.
have that, but I just thought she was,
I'm asking, where do we,
23.
did they go over budget? Like, I want to know in the end, they come in on budget overall, because then frankly, I don't,
So you have to remember that since we don't see the breakdowns of what programs, some of those are washes, so they might come in over budget because they added 5 extra programs during the year that were a wash, so that revenue comes in and those expenses are.
yeah, but is it really our? No, I don't want to say it's not our concern, but if in the end, they're managing their budget and they're coming in either under budget or at budget, is it really our concern that individual line items and programs didn't make a
To me-
profit or break even?
To me, it is because we don't get it reported that way, so to me, if we're taking $8,000 to give it to one program, yet I'll bring up the Pucked Up Neighborhood Center again, yet we're taking $1,000 off those. These are those decisions we're making, and when we cut affordable housing, or we cut economic development, or we cut whatever we cut from that budget, $8,000 is considerable when we don't know that that's happening. So yeah, if it all works out, the revenue works out and that expense works out, then that's great, but we didn't know that in the past. So I agree, if that works out, perfect, but that's why if we see the breakdowns of what programs we run as a town and what programs we sub out, then we can always track them.
I just think that in this case, Brad is looking to do more auditing of maybe they've never really done any auditing of these programs over the years. I don't know when the Board of
I
Selectmen
think
really.
There's opportunity. I definitely think.
I know
there's
when I was a selectman, I don't think we did a lot of that. We pretty much, if they said that's what they need, that's what they need. So I think this is a case of maybe trying to be more fiscally
Yeah.
responsible. We just say, it's not that we don't want to give you the money. We just know what's coming in and how we're spending it. So
So they actually, so 22-23. They,
What were they budgeted for, dear?
22-23, they were budgeted for 131,
Oh,
412.
all right, so they did go over. They were over.
But
budget.
their revenue was up a little over their projected on that too. Because
Okay.
so that just goes to show you that they added programs through the wash. So all of
Okay.
a sudden somebody said, hey, I want to drama 5 times. I want to run that program. So if anybody wants to run a program, they approach recreation, say, hey, I'd like to teach knitting. And I want to charge this. Can I run it through you? And rec approves it, and then
Okay.
that's where we see that wash, and that's where Bob brings up,
Mhm.
hey, should we charge a processing fee or something?
Mhm.
So,
All right, so do you want us to vote on each?
yeah, so on that processing fee, by the way, I think there should be 2 different numbers. One, if they're not using the facilities, it's an administration fee. And one, if they are using the facilities and we're paying for heat and lights and so on, it might be maybe one's $25 and one's $50. I don't know. That could be the rec department could figure that out. Yeah, so all those in favor of doing a $2,900 reduction,
1601.
so it's B 1601, right now is $70,400 to lower that by $2,900. Say aye.
Aye.
So that
Okay.
would bring that line item to 67,500.
That sounds about right. And then it'll bring that 1950 in green to a much higher number, to like 48.
4850.
Right, correct.
Now, on the flip side, on the same thing, do you believe that our expenses are good based on electricity and all that stuff? Because that's what falls, so 1605 is electricity and things like that? Is that? do you think that's accurate?
I do, plus we do have money in capital that, for the rec building. So I think that's okay at this point.
Okay, because they're at, whenever this is in February, they were at,
Are you talking about B 1605?
yeah, so they were at 62% of their budget in beginning of.
And they should have been at 66.7%,
Okay,
so they're
we're
close.
looking good.
Yep.
And the heating is probably one of their biggest electricity.
And that's gonna get
So,
lowered.
Okay, perfect. I just did want to end up with a deficit. open.
No, understood. Anything else on that page? If hearing none, we'll turn the page to public safety. I've got 3 changes on this page. B 2610, we just discussed with the ACO about raising her expense at 26.10, 2610 animal control operating expense from 6,000 to 10,000. Can I have a motion to raise that?
I'll make a motion to raise B 26.10 animal control operating expenses from 6,000 to 10,000.
Great.
A second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. B 26.12, North Sunderland Ambulance Association. They're looking for a $50,000 increase. Okay, I love the North Sunderland Ambulance Association. I think they do a great job. However, I think they also have an asset that I want to make sure that they don't forget about, and then I need to get that moved, is the one on Maine's Crossing Road. That's the old ambulance house. I want to make, they have, if, in my estimation, if you get the end of this year, which is March, April, May, June, March, April, May, June, 4 months, and they have 12 months next year to cover this budget. That's 16 months to move that building. I know they can get money for that building. They could probably sell it to a contractor, just to throw some numbers and just off the top of my head. Let's say they sold it for $100,000 to someone who put 100,000 into it. Now they're into 200,000, but they turned it into a ranch house. Now they sell it for 250, 270, 275. I think the ambulance has the ability to move this asset now that they've got the deed restriction changed. And I don't want them to just have it sitting over there like for a rainy day. I want to have them move it. So I'm not opposed to a large increase for the ambulance association, but I think $50,000 is a hefty one. I like to drop that to $25,000 and give them a flat 250 versus the 225 they had last year. If for some reason they have a issue where they can't move that within the next 16 months and they have to come to to us for an appropriation, the fact that their leadership seems to be in good standing. They are making all the calls and then some. They will come in anytime we want to explain what they're doing. I feel very comfortable with that group, and we could go for an appropriation if need be, because I know they'd explain it to us. But in the meantime, I'd love to see them, when we asked Logan what would happen to those funds if they did sell that property, he said it would go into operating. And that's where I wanted to take this out of, is operating. So I still want to give them, my opinion is to give them a large increase of $25,000, which is one of the biggest increases in this budget, but not give them the full $50,000 that they asked for. And again, just my opinion. You guys can discuss what you want to discuss with it.
I mean, if you're comfortable with that, I am. I have to say that, I thought Logan's presentation was done well. I liked how he let us know what was going on with the collections and things like that. And I do feel comfortable that if we did lower and there was an issue, that we'd go for an additional appropriation or something going forward, because I think it's pretty transparent in his process and what's happening. So I'd be comfortable doing that.
I am too.
And I really do think they have an asset that they can move. Somebody would buy that property for at a low number to turn it over and flip it, so. All right, so, any other discussion? All those in favor of lowering the NSAA Ambulance Association B 26.12 from a $50,000 increase to a $25,000 increase, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, next I have on B 2708 labor and wages under the Public Works Department, according to my, that's what it says here, Public Works prep on my budget.
Exactly.
I spoke, something came up at town hall in the last couple of days. So we were doing the trail with Bill Ricker. We're trying to get a grant for the handicap trail, all accessible trail between Kingswood and the schools. And part of that is some in-kind work that the town will do that'll make about 20%, so it doesn't end up costing the town any money. So we can do some in-kind work, so add some labor and some materials, and that will cover us on the 20%. When they did that, we had to put down wages, and we found out that the assistant foreman actually makes less money than some of the people he supervises. The reason for that is that we have two different labor unions, the Steelworkers Union that covers the highway garage. We have the Ask Me Union that covers the town hall. The assistant foreman is under the Ask Me labor. He's not allowed for some reason to be, maybe Laura can answer this, he's not allowed to be under the steelworkers. So because of that, over the years, the way that we have another negotiation coming up, not this spring, but a year from now, because that in July of 25 will be the new new 3-year contracts for both unions. It's every 3 years. We've put accelerators in the steelworkers that aren't in the Ask Me union. And because of that, the steelworkers' pay goes up quicker, and somehow it's going ahead of the assistant foreman. So discovering this mistake, I think it's a mistake. To make that right, and for this coming budget, if I put $7,114 into that line, it would cover me on the assistant foreman's pay going forward for the fiscal year 24-25. I don't have to worry about the next year because we're going to go back to negotiation prior to the budget in 25-26. But it does make that position where it should be. And again, and I'm not going retroactive back to last year and the year before and what he did not get paid with that. I'm not talking about any particular individual, what that position did not get paid prior. It's just moving forward with this coming budget starting in July 1st. So that makes the budget whole, gets the assistant foreman to where he needs to be. I also feel that the assistant foreman's probably the lead candidate to become the foreman in November. I just want to make sure that we do the right thing. And to me, $7,114 makes sense on a $561,000 line item. And I'd be glad to, talk to the Board of Finance about this tomorrow evening and let them know why we made this decision. So if there's any questions, I'd be glad to try to answer them for you. Do you kind of understand what I'm talking about? Okay.
Yeah. No.
I'm
I
sure you deal
heard
with
it.
unions all the time, don't you, Nicole?
Oh, yeah.
Brad, any questions for me on that? No.
No.
Okay, so let's, if it's okay, motion that we raise the line item number B2708, B27.08, labor and wages, raise the current number, which is $560,939 by an amount of $7,114.00. Did you get that, Laura?
Yeah, that'll bring that line item to 568,053.
Okay. And when we get to the end of this and we vote, you'll be able to give me a copy of that tomorrow, correct? And I can email it out to both Brett and Nicole. Okay.
Did you say 568,053?
Yep.
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay. That's all I had on that page. Is there anything that either selectman would like to talk about on that page? Nothing? Okay, I think we're almost done because I only have one more adjustment. It's on the next page, which is page 6. It's on the very last line before you get to the totals. It's B3409, affordable housing. So I talked to the chairman of the Affordable Housing Committee and I said, so what do you think about this? What do you have planned for this $500? And what did you do in the past? If you notice, if you go back actual 2 years ago, it was 153.87. They had a pizza and something get together up on the second floor of the library. The only ones that were really there were affordable housing people and Kensett people. And that's basically what they're gonna do with this money. There's really no, at this point, there's no direction. I'd like to make sure this is one of the advisory boards that comes in to speak to us, to tell us where their direction is. I mentioned a couple of meetings ago that possibly, I mean, the 501c3 seems to be a lot more active than our own in-house advisory board. It doesn't look good to Hartford when we're talking about affordable housing to get rid of the Affordable Housing Board at this point. So I had asked the chair if he'd be willing to let me drop it by $499 and keep $1 in the line item to keep the line item alive, and we not to disband the affordable housing at this time, and give them an opportunity to come to us and tell us what their plan was for the upcoming year. If they have a plan and they can put a dollar value next to it, then we can probably support it. But at this point, there's no plan, except for maybe another pizza party or something. So I just don't understand why we would do that. So it's not a big number, but I think it's a fair number of dropping it by $499. Does anyone have a problem with that?
I do not.
No,
No, okay. So all those in favor of dropping from 500 down to $1, say aye.
aye.
Aye. That's all the budget changes I have. If there's anybody other two selectmen, that would be great. And if there isn't, Laura, do you know if your calculations are happening also to the cover page where we're gonna see percentages? I mean, I know on my computer, they're all tied in, so.
2.14%.
So the overall is 2.14, but that includes, that's capital and operating, but does not include debt, which doesn't change. And education, which we don't know what the Board of Ed is yet. But what's the top number for government operating? We went for 4.98% increase to what's the increase now?
4.67.
So it's a 4.67% increase. And obviously the capital is the capital, which sounds like a big increase, but the town's concentrating more on capital this year after not concentrating on it for a number of years. So what else would either Nicole or Brett like to comment on the budget before we close the discussion and we vote on it? There's no questions online. Is there any questions or comments from the audience on this budget?
Well, I have a quick question. The education numbers that we see here, is this reflecting what they voted on the other night?
No, this is only what they haven't presented yet, so I can't put it in here. This is last year's budget, so there's been no change to it.
But they officially approved.
They did officially.
But they haven't presented it to the Board of Finance yet.
We haven't either. I'm just wondering what that number.
I guess we'll know when they present, because then I can start putting it into this page and we'll have a true number.
So based on just our budget and our capital, we're slightly under a mill increase technically.
Well, if you go by a mill being 500,000, yes. But now we know a mill is 612,000 or somewhere close to that, so. Daryl hasn't been, I gotta have him give me a class on how exactly to determine how he comes up with a mill. But considering that our capital is up 53.68%, that's a big number, but that's what we said we would do with capital. I don't think that a 4.67% increase in general government is a big number. When you see that most of it, now when I do the the sheets for the Board of Finance tomorrow, the summary sheets, and I'll send those to you. I think we'll see most of that is in things like insurances and healthcare, things like that. Okay.
So what was our original number? Percent one?
I don't have the original one with me, Brett. You might find it.
Yeah, it would be interesting to know.
I know I sent it
How
out to
much
you
progress we made.
So,
more than you think.
so I
Yeah.
know last year we were doing different renditions of.
We have those still. We keep them all. But I don't have it with me is all I'm saying. This is actually the official, I think this is the third
One
rendition.
from February 16th, we were at.
4.9, no,
Look at that.
4.98, right.
4.98, yeah, I was hoping.
But
I had one.
the original one was probably in, I think it might see December 23rd on it, but it's actually from early February, February 6th, maybe. And it would be in your packet that you got for that meeting on February 6th. I think it was February 6th.
I I have a feeling they're gonna ask us to cut it even more, given the education budget. I
If
just-
they do,
I just think that's gonna be right. So we knew we were gonna take a big hit with capital, but I am hopeful they'll move it forward, but
when I put that summary page together, maybe I'll highlight what we what we have to do because it's part of a contract, whether it be through negotiation, salary increases, through things we can't control like insurances. And then look what was arbitrary that we decided that we could either cut or not cut. And see what that number is. I think that's going to be a really small number. We actually have a decision in. There's a couple of things we could do on capital if we had to, but I hate to go there unless it's the last resort.
So what I see here,
The February 6th packet.
yeah, February 6th. Our total. It was, so we don't have the
Do you-
percentage,
Do
but
you
it
have the cover
shows
page?
it shows that we were at 5,911,480 with an increase of 359,097.
All right, so we went from 359 to 276.
Yeah, and then, well, the capital was there, so that was obviously the same.
So we
So,
went
yeah.
from 359 to 276. Now we just cut, but that 276 doesn't count what we cut it tonight.
Right, so we're.
What's that number tonight, Laura, on the cover page as far as the change? It's two what?
Change, total,
Yeah,
uh.
200.
for government.
What is it?
259, 398.
Oh.
Government operating.
And what
only.
was the original, Brett? Three what?
359. The increase was 359,097.84.
So basically we cut a little more, a little less than a third out of the budget, considering that the majority of this budget is stuff that we can't cut. Which isn't bad. And I think the Board of Finance will understand that. Hopefully. So if there's no comment by people here or online, I'd entertain a motion to approve this budget as we worked on it tonight, and I'll bring it to the Board of Finance tomorrow. Unless you want to do something else.
No. I don't
So
think,
we need to approve the budget and the total number. So I'll make a motion to approve the budget totaling. Laura, what's our total altogether with capital?
With capital, you want to, and with debt and education?
no, because
No,
the debt
just
and
the-
education is, the education is not set.
So going into this evening was 499, 699 was the increase. It was 23,018,535 before the night started. And that's what you want to know now, right?
Yeah, to make the motion to approve.
So it's going to be 22 million something.
I'll make the motion to sorry, to move forward the 22 million and something. Do we getting the exact number?
Um, So you don't want.
So, no, we don't want debt and we don't want education, so we just want the government and government operating and then capital together. How is that how is education even in there? That's like a,
That's just it.
they just move
Based
forward?
on last year's numbers.
Okay,
So that'll change once.
I
they-
forget, was it in the fours there, their percent increase?
3.something.
It was less than
Right.
4?
A new number for this.
That's what you have here, right?
So 5, 8,
Mhm.
1, 1. And the 6 or 8 and change, so 5, 8, 1, 1, 7. You can say that one.
Okay.
3.36.
So government operating, you have, 5,811,781, and then capital. You currently have proposed 638,436.
And we don't need that big total of 22 million because it's got debt and education in it, which we don't know. So the number you were looking for, Brett, is it the 5,811,781 dollars? Is that the
Yes.
number?
Make a motion to approve that one.
Well,
With
But-
capital of.
yeah, with a capital of
638,436.
638,436 for a grand total of 6,450,217.
So moved.
Okay, so we have the motion. We have a second.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that is the budget. We're going to the Board of Finance with tomorrow. Perfect. Okay. Tax refunds. There's 2 sets of these.
Okay. Make a. I'll make a motion to approve tax refunds in the amount of $4,922.71 to Mary Lawless and Jessica Scott.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 And I'll make a motion to approve tax refunds in the amount of $4,804.27 to Elizabeth Lewis, Scient Federal Credit Union, Charter Oak, Core Logic, Ron Lewis, and Stephen Vetrovac.
Vetrovic, yep.
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? If hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. You're more nasally. Don't blame me. I don't know why. It's not my fault. No, I wasn't with you.
You all stay on that side of the room. Bob, just point of order, I think that, did we actually touch on 8B, Plan of Conservation Development update?
I just noticed I have no update.
Okay,
I don't think I touched on it, but retroactive, I tell you, there was no update.
okay.
Sorry about that.
No, I just didn't know. Right now, we have something scheduled.
Yeah, there's a hearing with planning and zoning scheduled for later this month.
Okay.
And then I think is it John, is it later this month, the P and Z hearing on the POCD? Okay. Okay. Yeah, I knew it was sometime later and then we can finally put that to bed if it gets approved and move forward. Thank you. Any public comment? Okay, hearing none. So it says meeting with BOS and BOF March 6th. That's meeting tomorrow. It's really not the two of us. It's really just a BOF meeting that I have to attend. Our next meeting as a Board of Selectmen will be March 19th. On March 11th, it's not on here, but the Board of Finance, which is next Monday, will be reviewing what I give them tomorrow night. So if you want, it's on a Monday, you know, how they do Monday meetings every other Monday in March. I will be here for that, so I can answer questions if there are questions. But that'll be totally up to you guys if you want to be here or not, but they're gonna, that's when they're actually gonna review what I give them tomorrow night.
So that That's not on the town calendar either.
They probably haven't put it in yet.
Okay, so the 11th is like a special Board of
So,
Finance?
so we have tomorrow night is the presentation by the Board of Selectmen to the Board of Finance.
Yeah,
The 11th is the Board of Finance discussion on what I give them tomorrow night on the Board of Selectmen budget.
Is that here, Bob? Because I see EDC as a meeting as well. Nice.
It is here, and I think EDC is moving to the back room because they moved their meeting from the other night.
Okay.
And then our next meeting is the 19th, which is just a regular Board of Selectmen meeting. I'm sure if, when we hear back from the Board of Finance, there'll be more to it than that, but
what time is the 11th?
their
That
meetings
their
are typically
regular seven?
7, I believe, yes. And there's no basketball games on the 11th, just saying.
There's what?
No basketball games scheduled for the 11th. If we win, we play on the 12th.
Okay.
We win twice, tomorrow and Friday.
All right,
And I promise you, if we go to Mohegan Sun, I will not schedule any meetings, nor will I try to advocate for any meetings on that evening. But besides that, it's on a Saturday. All right, so if there's nothing else,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
adjourn at 8:03.
Second.
Okay, second, and I do want to publicly say congratulations to the boys basketball team playing so well and doing so well, and
Yes.
I think that someone mentioned today how it's bringing the town together, and I think it is, so,
Absolutely.
okay, good night.